This little sassy penguin is only about 4 inches high. Let me show you step by step how I made them. First of all, you're going to need a stuffing, just like for a regular pillow or stuffed animal, just stuffing there. And then a nice stretchy velvety fabric that has a nice black color for the back. A soft kind of a fleecy white for the tummy. And then this vinyl kind of thing for the feet, just a nice stiff foot color fabric. Here's your typical foam, non-adhesive. And also I use this Kleenex box. I needed those ridges to make the beak out of. And then of course a good hot glue gun, always nice to have. And then the orange paint for the beak. Then I had the black thread and needle to sew the pieces of fabric together. And then typical scissors for the fabric, scissors for the other harder materials, and then wire cutters for these little wires that you're going to be using for the inside of his flippers. Oh, and then the beads. Yes, the beads for the eyes. Really tiny beads because you don't want the eyes like big bulgy things. So anyway, all right, so there's the beads. Oh, and then don't forget to go with the orange paint. We're going to need a little paintbrush. So I use this little foam thing here. Now, so you're going to cut out the shape. Oh, you want a fat tummy and a nice little rounded head. On the back, you're going to use just that rectangular piece. Leave a little bit longer on the bottom. We're going to put the right sides together, so the outside of the penguin is on the inside right now, because we're going to sew it together and then turn it right side out. So I placed that closer to the top so that there's more of room at the bottom for a tail. And then I'm going to just take my needle and thread and put a knot in the end of the thread so that it stays. So that I'm going to then take that needle and thread, and I'm going to leave the bottom open, but I'm going to start right there at that bottom corner and work my way up around the edges, leaving the bottom slit open so that I can turn it inside out when I'm done. Make your stitches nice and close together so that there's no gaps or any stuffing poking through the seams. And we're going to put a little ridge in the middle of that white material so that it pooches out a little bit, because that'll be his tummy, and usually penguins have a nice fat tummy, but their back is nice and flat. So we're sewing, stitching the stitches nice and close together, and then we'll sew up around the head area. So the only part that you pooch out is right there at the tummy. So then see there, I have it all sewn together. Then you trim off the excess black, except for where the tail's going to be. So that area right there where the tail is, that's the open part where we're going to turn it inside out. So now it's all stitched together. We're turning it inside out carefully. And once we get it turned inside out, we'll be stuffing it with that stuffing. Now, because it is so small, I used just the end of a pencil, the eraser end of a pencil, to push the stuffing through. So there, I finally get it through there. And so there, I'm starting to stuff it. I put the stuffing in little pieces at a time so that it is nice and packed in there. I don't have any bulges or, any areas that have air pockets. So it's all nice and pretty stiff in there, nice and tight. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stuff that little last piece in, and I'm going to put the wire through that I'm going to be using for the inside of the flippers. Now this is a coated wire, so there's a little bit of tape across it, but in order to make a way for the wire to go through, I'm going to use a toothpick, and I'm going to put it right between those stitches there and kind of twist it in and twist it straight across, right about shoulder height. So now I have a good kind of a opening there that I can easily stick the wire through, straight through, and then that will be the skeletal support for his little flippers. And I'm going to fold it across to have it a nice thick, instead of having the flippers just balance on a thin wire, they'll be balancing on the or glued to this kind of a flipper shape there. So now we're going to take that black foam and we're going to cut it in the shape of a little flipper. The little flipper kind of has a rounded tip to it. The tip is a little bit more narrow than the area that would attach to the shoulder. So we're going to just cut that out, and we'll have that on the bottom side of the flipper. So there's that flipper shape. Then on the top side is going to be another piece of that nice black soft fabric, the same kind that you're using for the back. So you're going to cut that fabric the same shape as the foam flipper. The fabric will go on top and the foam on bottom. Now we're going to cut the ridge. I want that ridge right there for my beak, and we'll just cut out 2 little squares. Then you're going to cut them into little triangles for the beak. So so the beak has its own little fold already folded in. Then we take those little beaks and we're going to slit just maybe 1/8 of an inch right at that ridge on the flat side, so that we can fold it up and get a little bit of an edge there, so that that edge is where we can put the glue to glue it to the penguin's face. So there's the little beak, the point, and on the opposite end of the point is that little ridge where we'll be putting the glue. So that's where we'll be gluing it on the face. But first, of course, we have to paint them orange. Some penguins have black beaks, so if you want to paint it black, then paint it black. Have fun. But I painted mine orange, so I take that little bit of paint and I gave it a couple coats because the Kleenex box I used had a pattern on it and I didn't want the pattern to show through. So here I am painting, la la la. Okay, now it's drying. Now I'm taking the vinyl and I'm cutting out little feet. And I'm getting them 3 little toes and a skinny little leg. And those feet are going to be glued to another wire that we'll be inserting into the penguin from the bottom that's open. So there's those little feet, and here's another piece of fabric that I'm cutting kind of to a point that's going to go over his head right down onto the top of his ridge of his beak. Because most penguins have like a little eyebrow area there. So I'm making it really skinny because I really don't want it to like fold over the head and stuff. So I'm making this little cut, and that's what it'll look like. And that point right there will go on the ridge of his beak. So we're going to glue it right there after we put his beak on. Now here's the wire we're going to be inserting for the feet. We're going to insert it all the way up the back so that when we stand the penguin up, he will have the ability to be bent, you know, in different positions. With those little feet sticking out, we're going to glue those vinyl feet, one on front and one on back. But first I wanted to show you how I glued the flippers on. Here's that foam that goes on the underside of the wire. Put it nice and flush with the body on the one end, and make sure that the wire is centered in the middle of the flipper. Then you put glue on top of that because you're going to be carefully laying that soft black stretchy material on top of that. I started with the tip and stretched it towards the body to cover that wire, make sure that wire is completely covered. Then we do the other side, putting the foam on the bottom, pushing it up flush against the body, and then carefully laying the black fabric on top. I just make sure it's all nice and smooth. Now I glued the beak on already. The beaks should be glued to the face where they're barely touching each other, so you can either have it open or closed. And here I'm gluing on that little fabric that's going to be like the eyebrows. The tip of the fabric touches the very top ridge of the beak, and then I smooth that either side down, gluing it to the black part of the fabric. Make sure that hot glue does not get all over the fabric because that just totally destroys it. Be very, very careful with the hot glue that it not be all globby. So there we have finished the little headpiece. Oh, he's taking shape. Isn't he cute? We're going to take a toothpick and put a bead on one end of the toothpick and hold it there so we have it nice. And then just get a little dab of glue and put it right up there at the top of the beak, right underneath the black material. And then turn your toothpick over, slide the bead off, and hold it in place till the glue is dry. And there's your eye. And then we do the other side. Oh, there we get the little glue, dot of glue right underneath that black material. Slide off the bead, hold it in place, and there's your face. Oh my, that was fast. Okay, now we are gluing the feet onto the wires. Now you can pull those wires out to glue the feet on, and then when the feet are all glued on to the tips of the wires, you can slide those wires back up the back side on the inside, obviously, of the penguin, and then slide them in place, and then we'll be stitching that area at the bottom closed. We'll stitch around the wires so that it'll look like he has little legs. So we're going to take our thread, put the little knot at the end, and stitch back and forth there. But we're going to take that excess black there and fold it into a point so that it forms a tail, and we'll sew that to a point, and voila, your little penguin's finished. You can be shaping him any way you want, and there he is. Now this here is something I did for a friend. It's a piece of foam that I cut into like a little mountain, and I put little toothpicks on it to burrow into the penguins so they would stay in place. That one's sliding into the ocean. That one there's crawling and pushing himself out of a hole. The other one's climbing up the mountain, and that one there's trying to hang on and not slip off. This one here over to the side has a little bit of an attitude. Yes, he does. And this little giver penguin has a present for his friend. So this would be kind of a fun little midsummer penguin party to cool things off a bit. Or if your kids like penguins and you just want to put penguins in their room, or maybe just a Christmas idea too. Penguins are just like so cute all year round. Because we made their little flippers and feet bendable, there are many positions you could put him in to have fun and be creative. Have him holding on to things, or pushing off things, or waving at you. Just enjoy and have fun. As always, I want to give Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, credit for the creativity and the joy that I have with my crafts.